Everyone, so today I would like to explain about Chapter 7, Assessing Speaking from Language Assessment, book by Douglas Brown. Let's get started. Okay. Okay, so first about the basic types of speaking. We have five basic types of speaking. First is imitative. This is at one end of a continuum of types of speaking performance is the ability to simply parrot back or imitate a word of a phrase or possibly a sentence. And then we have intensive. It is the production of short stretches of oral language designed to demonstrate competence in a narrow band of grammatical, phraseological, or phonological relationship. And then we also have a responsive. Responsive assessment has include interaction and task comprehensions, but at the somewhat limited level of very short conversations, standard greetings and small talk, simple requests and comments and the like. And then we have interactive. The difference between responsive and interactive speaking is the length and complexity of the interaction, which sometimes includes multiple exchanges and or multiple participants. And then we have extensive. Extensive oral production tasks include speech, oral presentation, and storytelling, and during which the opportunity for oral interaction from listener is either highly limited or ruled out altogether. Okay, then we have a micro and macro scales of speaking. For the micro scale, produce differences among English phonemes and allophonic variants, produce chunks of language of different lengths, and then produce English stress patterns, words in stress and unstressed position, rhythmic structure, and intonation contours. And we have produced richest form of words and phrases, and also use an adequate number of lexical units or words to accomplish pragmatic purposes and so on. And then here we have the macro skills. This is the appropriately accomplished communicate functions according to situations, participants, and goals. And then use appropriate styles, register, implicature, redundancies, pragmatic conventions, convention rules, floor keeping and yielding, interrupting, and other social linguistic features in face-to-face conversation. And then also convey links and connection between events and communicate such relations as focal and peripheral ideas, events, and feelings, new information and given information, generalizations, and exemplifications. Okay, and so on. Okay, we move into the next slide. Designing assessment task, imitative speaking. You may be surprised to see the inclusions of a simple phonological imitation in a consideration of assessment of oral production. In a simple repetition task, test takers repeat the stimulus whether it is a pair of words, a sentence, or perhaps a question. You can see the example here about word repetition task. And then phone pass test. The phone pass test elicits computer assist oral production over a telephone. Test takers read aloud, repeat sentences, say words, and answer questions. With the downloadable task sheet as a reference, test takers are directed to telephone a designated number and listen for direction. And here the phone pass and here the phone pass test specification. You can see there are part A, B, C, D, and E. And the next we have a designing assessment task about intensive speaking. First, we have a directed response task. In this type of task, the administrator elicits a particular grammatical form or transformation of a sentences. And then we have a read aloud task. This technique is easily administered by selecting a passage that incorporates task specs and by recording the task taker's output. The scoring is relatively easy because all of the task takers' oral production is controlled. Again, then we have a intensive. We still in the intensive speaking, sentence or dialogue completion tasks and oral questionnaires. Another technique for targeting intensive aspects of language requires test takers to read dialogue in which one speaker's lines have been omitted. Test takers are first given time to read through the dialogue to get its gist and to think about appropriate lines to fill in. Then, as the tape teacher or test administrator, purchase one part orally, and the test taker respond, and then you can see the examples right here about dialogue completion test. And then about the picture cued task. One of the more popular ways to elicit oral language performance at both intensive and extensive levels is a picture cued stimulus that requires a description from the task taker. Pictures may be very simple, designed to elicit a word and a phrase, somewhat more elaborate and buzzy, or composed of a series that tells a story or incident. Here is an example of a picture cued elicitation of the production of a simple minimal pairs. Okay. So we have two picture here, and then the test takers will hear test administrator points to each picture in succession uh, about what's this, and then the test taker should uh, try to speak through the picture that available. Okay, and then we have a translation of limited stretches of discourse. In designing such questions for test takers, it's important to make sure that you know why you are asking the question. Are you simply trying to elicit strings or language output to gain a general sense of the test taker's discourse competence? Are you combining discourse and grammatical competence in the same question? Is each question just one in a whole set of related questions? And responsive questions may take the following form. Paste in an area of direct approaches to creating communicative classrooms and a well-proven communication strategy for learners of a second language. And then we moved into the responsive speaking. We have the question and answer. The technique is simple. The administrator poses the problem and the test taker responds. Scoring is based primarily on comprehensibility and secondarily on other specified grammatical or discourse categories. This is the eliciting instructions or the direction. You can see the picture in the slide. So the test taker will hear several questions, and then the test takers respond with a few sentences at most. And then giving instructions and directions. Another type of assessment task that can be categorized as responsive as the test taker to read or hear a limited number of sentences, perhaps two or five, and produce a paraphrase of the sentences. For example, here you can see the picture on the slide. And then paraphrasing. The tasks on the TSE are designed to elicit oral production in various discourse categories rather than in selected phonological, grammatical, or lexical targets. The following content specifications for the TSE represent the discourse and pragmatic context assessed in each administration. The administrations include describe something physical, narrate from presented material, summarize information of the speaker's own choice, give a direction based on the visual material, give instructions, give an opinion, support an opinion, compare or contrast, and then a hypothesis, and then function interactively and also divide. And then this is gonna be the example of the paraphrasing. You can see the picture on the slide. Okay, so next we moved into the taste of spoken English or TSE. This is a summary of information about the test of spoken English. Oh, okay, we have a okay. Okay, next we moved into so this is still in interactive speaking. Uh, First, about the interview. Every effective interview contains a number of mandatory stages. 2 decades ago, Michael Cannell, 1984, proposed a framework for oral proficiency testing that has withstood the test of time. Lai suggested that test takers will perform at the best if they are led through 4 stages. The first is a warm up. In a minute of or so of preliminary small talk, the interview directs mutual introductions, have the test takers become comfortable with the situation, and then apprises the test takers of the format and allays anxieties. No scoring of this phase takes place. And then next, the level check. Through a series of pre-planned questions, the interviewer stimulates the test taker to respond using expected or predicted forms and functions from previous data, previous test information, grades, or other data. And then we have probed questions and prompt challenge test takers to go to the heights of their ability to extend beyond the limits of the interviewer's expectation through increasingly difficult question. And then wind down. The interviewer encouraged test takers to relax with some questions, sets the test taker mind at ease, and provides information about when and where to obtain the results of the interview. And then role play. Role playing is a popular pedagogical activity in communicative teaching, language teaching classes. In some versions, role play allows some rehearsal time so that students can map out what they are going to say. With prompt, for example, pretend that you are a tourist asking me for directions. Certain personal, strategic, and linguistic factors come into the foreground of the test taker oral abilities. And then discussions and conversation. Discussion may be especially appropriate tasks through which to elicit and observe such abilities as topic nomination, maintenance, and termination, attention getting, interrupting, floor holding, and then control, and then clarifying, questioning, and paraphrasing, comprehension signal, like a nodding or and etc. And then negotiating meaning, and then etc. and meaning more. And then we have a games. Among informal assessment devices are a variety of games that directly involve language production. Consider the following types. First is Tinker Toy game. A Tinker Toy or Lego block structure is built behind a screen. One or two learners are allowed to view the structure. And then crossword puzzle. It is created in which the names of all members of a class are clued by obscure information about them. And the information captures. It is created such that class members must conduct mini interviews of other classmates to fill in boxes. And then city maps. City maps are directed to class members. Predetermined map direction are given to one student who, with a city map in front of him or her, describes the route to a partner. And then we move into the oral proficiency interview, or OP. The best known oral interview format is one that has gone through a considerable metamorphosis over the last half century. The oral proficiency interview, the OP, is widely used across dozens of languages around the world. Only certified examiners are authorized to administer the OP. Here is a summary of SCTFL OP, and you can see here we have producer, objective, primary market, type response, mode specification, time allocation, also the internet access. You can read it here. And then we have the extensive speaking. First, about the oral presentation. For oral presentations, a checklist or grid is a common means of scoring and evaluation. Following is an example of a checklist for a prepared oral presentation at the intermediate or advanced level of English. This is the oral presentation checklist. You can see right here. And such a checklist is reasonably practical. Its reliability can vary if clear standards for scoring are not maintained. Its authenticity can be supported in that all of the items or the list contribute to an effective presentation. And then picture cued storytelling. One of the most common techniques for eliciting oral production is through visual pictures, photograph, diagrams, and chart. This is the picture cued storytelling task. It's always tempting to throw any picture sequence at test takers and have them talk for a minute or so about them. But as is true of every assessment of speaking ability, the objective or eliciting narrative discourse needs to be clear. Okay, so retelling a story, news event, and then the test taker here read a story or news event that they are asked to retell, and therefore the translation of extended prose. Translation of words, phrases, or short sentences was mentioned under the category of intensive speaking. Here, longer texts are presented for the test taker to read in the native language and then translate into English. This text could come in many forms, like a dialogue, direction for assembly of a product, a synopsis of a story or play or movie, directions on how to find something on a map, and other genres. And then the advantage of translation is in the control of the content, vocabulary, and to some extent the grammatical and discourse features. And then the disadvantage is that translations of longer texts is a highly specialized skill for which some individuals obtain post baccalaureate degrees. Okay, so that's about the chapter 7. Thank you for your attention and see you.